everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now this is Thuya. It's a softwood from Morocco and it is generally found in the Atlas Mountain region. It's an incredibly beautiful wood, but only the burl area. The rest of the tree doesn't really have that much commercial value. Now the burls are very much sought after, meaning that they are quite expensive. So we're quite lucky to have a piece to do something with. Now it does have a couple of main problems. First of all, it is a softwood, it is loaded with sap, and it is incredibly hard to turn. So hopefully if we can keep our tools sharp enough and get up to a good enough speed, we should be able to combat that. Now the second main problem is that it's incredibly hard to sand. The thick sap that's in the wood makes the sandpaper clog up so incredibly quickly that you can't sand more than a few seconds with normal sandpaper before you have to declog it or change pieces. But I do know a way around that, and I'll show you how a little bit later on. So first of all, let's figure out what we can get out of this piece and get it on the lathe. Now I do have a few smaller projects coming up very soon, so I'd like to try and save some of this that we're not going to use. So I'm going to mark it out and then cut it out on the bandsaw. And that should about do it. Okay, there we go. There's some amazing grain appearing on the side already, and the smell in the workshop's quite incredible. This stuff has a very much like a cedary smell to it when it's being turned, so you can only imagine what it smells like in here. Right, so we've got the centre. I'm just going to drill out with an 8mm bit, and we can get it on the worm screw. Okay, nice and safely on the lathe. I've just sharpened up my 3/8 inch Record Power Pro Comfort ball gouge, so that's all ready to go. Now I did take a look at this before we put it on the lathe, and there are some surface cracks on it, but hopefully they're more towards the edge and they only go in a certain depth. There's nothing on the back, so hopefully we're going to be okay. Now, main things to think about at the start is that we want to try and get some of these big lumps out so we can pick up the speed. We're currently at about 850 RPM, so we're going to work on those, and I think we also may have a quick go at getting this round so we know what we're working with. I have no idea what yet this is going to look like when it's finished. It is going to be a bowl. I pretty much know that. There's not much chance of getting a vase out of this, so let's get started and see what happens. Okay, that was an interesting first cut. There's certainly an amazing smell in the workshop now. Now, some of these cracks on the side do seem to go up an awful lot further than I was initially hoping they would. Yeah, there's some kind of making their way onto the top, which is not ideal, but there's nothing we can do about it. Now, we've started cutting a lot of the surface on the base. We've still not touched this area yet, and we do need to, because that can't be left just sanded, because it doesn't look very nice at all. It may look okay on camera, but up close it really isn't very nice, so we do need to try and get rid of that in some way. Now, as I mentioned once or twice, I think that this is one of the more beautiful types of wood in the world, I want to try and produce a design that shows it off as much as possible. So I'm going to just spend a little bit of time trying to get rid of this flat spot and see if I can work that into some sort of design which is going to show off this wood to its best. Okay, right, I've started to put a curve on here. Oh my, sorry. There's an amazing chatoyance in these burl bits here. I'm not sure if that's being picked up on camera, but it's the kind of figure that just suddenly makes you lose your train of thought. So right, we're putting this curve on here to try and get rid of this area. So it's going to have to go a little bit more, I think. And I think this curve, or this problem we've got here, is going to be the main deciding factor in what this piece ends up looking like. So without the help of any other guidance at the moment from any other influence, we're going to continue this curve, try and wheedle our way through all of this and see what we're left with. But that figure there, that chatoyance, is amazing. It's all the way around. Wow, okay. Okay, right, we've still got a couple of little holes there. Now I think that looks to be about, it's over 1/4 of an inch deep. I don't necessarily want to work it in there too much more before we lose the whole piece. So we've got a big hole in here, so we need to start forming a foot for this. And whilst tackling this hole here, hopefully we can do something about this one as well in the time that we're forming the foot. Now we do have, we've got some very, very sketchy looking wood around these areas, which may have to be sanded. We may have to pick up the speed, get our tools even sharper and have a good try at cutting this away. But we're not quite at that stage yet, so we'll just worry about the foot first and then we'll start to worry about this area. Right, before I do anything else though, I am going to quickly go and sharpen up again. Okay, let's see how we've got on. Still got a small dip there. Oh, and quite a big dip there. We haven't done particularly well. Right, so make it a little bit flatter. Go up a little bit further and accentuate this foot area just a little bit more. So we're taking this lip deeper in that way and then coming out onto this edge. there's still a fraction of a crack there. We've got another crack going up here. Nothing particularly structural. We've got a nice hole there. Where did that one come from? It was probably there all the time and I just hadn't noticed it yet. Right, at the moment we've got a slight in, out and in curve going on there, like an OG shape. I have no idea where that name came from. I must look it up. So how can I incorporate or get rid of that and it still look okay? Right, let's just start taking this up here a little bit higher to get rid of this hole and see how we can work that into the design. Okay, that hole's still there, but I'm starting to doubt if I've got the right kind of philosophy on that hole. I don't want this thick, chunky rim here, although it'll do a nice job at showing off the grain. I think it needs to be something different. I think it needs a curve on it, whether it goes inwards or out. Probably more likely to be in. How would that look? Okay, right, well I've got to flatten off a couple of these edges. So let's take this curve from here, the bottom bit there, up to that top. I'll get rid of those flats, or a lot of them, and we'll see how that looks. It'll also hopefully get rid of a bit more of that hole. I don't mind dealing with a little one, but it's quite big at the moment, so I would prefer it not to be there. Okay, that's better. When I started putting this curve in here, it left me with a very, very nasty looking lump, which just didn't sit at all right with the piece. So I just started wheedling that down and ended up with this smaller lip on here now. And that seems to suit it an awful lot better. Have I got rid of my hole? Okay, I can't see the hole either. That's good. Excellent. Right, now I did notice another flat spot. Yeah, I've still got a flat spot there. So I need to rework this rim a little bit there. I need to work this rim properly, getting rid of the flats, but I do like that rim. That's really quite elegant. Not like me at all. Okay, right, let's get rid of that. Okay, that wasn't very pleasant. I always seem to struggle on little fine things like that. But the result is okay. We've got a nice, delicate rim, which I'm pretty happy with. I need a bit more of a definition on this inside edge. But we've got to do some finishing cuts on here anyway, so that'll be fine. So I think the next step is to work on these finishing cuts, try and get rid of that little gap a little bit more, So we're working from this edge up to the top, and then we can do something with the base, put a recess in, I think. Right. Okay, so that last cut is taken very, very slowly, and it's going uphill. Now when I say uphill, what I mean is that as the tool is going up, each individual strand of wood that we're cutting is supported behind it by another piece of wood. Okay, another piece of grain. So this one's cut before this one. So if I was cutting primarily this way, then the opposite would occur. So it's cutting that and it's bending over, as opposed to being supported by the one behind. So if you cut uphill, then you end up, well, as you can see, you end up with a beautifully fine surface. All the tear out problems we had seem to have vanished. And I am going to give myself a huge pat on the back because I was nervous about that. That works so well. Okay, so I'm going to mark out for a recess. I'll get rid of that first, and I'll mark it out and cut that. And then I'll show you how to sand this, because normal methods will not work. Okay, we've got the recess in and we're all ready to start sanding. Now, standard sanding isn't very successful because the amount of sap that is in this wood, it just constantly keeps on clogging up the pores of the sandpaper or the surface, and you have to keep on cleaning it and you don't get anywhere very fast. So what you have to try and do is what we call wet sanding or oil sanding. So I've got a small tub here with some mineral oil in. It's a little bit thicker than I would usually like. Generally you want to try and use a thinner oil as possible, something like a lemon oil, but it's all I've got at the moment, so we're going to use this. If it is too thick, then I'm going to add a little bit of isopropyl alcohol into there, which hopefully will thin it up a little bit. Right, so all I'm going to do is dip my sandpaper into it and just hold it on the surface and sand in the old-fashioned way. Now what happens is that as it sands it, it creates a slurry, and it's that slurry made of the oil and the grit that will slowly refine this surface. So I'll quickly show you what we're doing first of all, and then I'll do the rest in the usual way. So dip in my sandpaper into the oil, get the piece spinning, and just gently hold it into the surface. Now I do have safety glasses on to stop this going into my eye, and I can just hope I can try and keep some of this off my tabard as well. Now you can still hear the sandpaper cutting, which is good, and as you can see it's kind of creating a slurry which is slowly sanding down the surface. It's quite fun actually. Okay, right, I'm going to get on with the rest of it. I'll let you watch a bit of it, and then I'll bring you back when we're done. Okay, that went very smoothly. Now, you may have noticed that I wasn't wearing a face mask or anything like that, mainly because there's no dust. When you sand like that, it's all in the slurry and there's nothing in the atmosphere whatsoever, so it's not a bad way of doing it. Right, a bit of isopropyl alcohol just to get any loose grit off the surface. I mean, it was looking beautiful before, but oh my neck, look at that. That is incredible. Right, I'm going to use 2 or 3 lots of this to get any excess out the wood, and then we'll come back on with a shellac sealer, I think. Okay, that's all nice and dry, so I'm going to go on with a blonde shellac sealer. This will help protect the wood and get it ready for whatever finish we put on afterwards. I think I'm going to apply a couple of coats on this because I'm not sure how it's going to work with the oil treatment underneath. And then when both coats are dry, we shall come back and go on with an abrasive paste. Okay, that's all nice and dry, so we're going to go on with the Northern Grit abrasive paste. This is going to refine the surface even further, hopefully giving us a wonderful shine at the end. We're going to start rubbing this in at about 450 RPM and then just slowly increase it at the end. Again, I'm going to keep my safety glasses on. I do not want this getting in my eyes. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual things. It doesn't cost you anything and it makes an enormous difference to us. I really do appreciate it. Right, wipe off any excess with the isopropyl again. And when this dries, we'll come back on with a final finish. Okay, for the final finish, we are using a new in development wax called XM, and this is X with oil. It's been developed by my good friend Dean at Goodwoods UK. He's the gentleman who developed the Northern Grit abrasive paste I use all the time, and he's been working on a few finishes for a while now, and he sent me a few through to test, and this is one of them, so we're going to give it a go and give our feedback. Apparently you don't need very much. It'll give a very, very hard, long-lasting shine. It's certainly gone on smooth enough. Right, let's buff this in. Wow, that's done all right. Excellent. Right, let's turn this around and do the same to the inside. Okay, we've turned it around and we're all just about ready to start hollowing out. Now, quick apology if you can hear lots of noises in the background. It's because we've got the tail end of a storm coming through and it is a little bit wild outside. Okay, turning speed now is about 1100 RPM, carrying on with a 3/8 inch bowl gouge. It's just been sharpened, so we're all ready. Okay, nice easy start. Thuya Burl is quite grabby on the tool, so it's a little bit janky when you're trying to hollow it out, but I'm sure we'll get there without too much of a problem. Now, thickness wise for this rim, don't forget this is jutting out, so I think we're nearly there, maybe just a couple of millimeters in from here, and I think we've got about the correct thickness for the rim. Okay, it's all going well. I've got a big tool mark in the middle there, but that's will soon be gone when I do the final pass down the side walls. Now I've done about as much as I can with the tailstock in place, so we'll take this away so we can get to this middle bit and put some finishing cuts on the side. That's pretty good. Just want to check the thickness of the base. It's not bad. Just a little bit more work to do there. There's a little bit of a hump, and then a couple of tool marks there. And I think we're about ready for the next stage. Right, that is marvellous. This big scraper has done an absolutely amazing job on this. Last thing we've got to do now is just flatten off this very edge, and I think we're ready for sanding. Excellent. Right, I've just angled that rim down just a fraction to tie it in with the rest of the piece in terms of design. And I think that's wonderful. Right, I shall set up for wet sanding, oil sanding. I'll let you watch a bit of it, and I'll bring you back when we're done. Okay, it went very well again. It's a very messy process, I must admit. I've got it up the walls and all over the place. So I do have a bit of tidying up to do at the end of this. But it certainly is effective. Right, I've just wiped off with isopropyl alcohol. I'll give this a little while to evaporate, and then we'll come back on with the shellac sealer. Okay, that's all nice and dry. So back on with the shellac sealer. As before, I'm going to give this 2 coats to make sure that the wood is well protected and sealed. When the 2 coats are dry, I'll come back on with an abrasive paste. Okay, excellent. Right, all nice and dry. So on again with the abrasive paste. And I've got my safety glasses back on. We'll just do exactly as we did before. Start off at about 450 RPM and then slowly increase the speed. Okay, looking good. Back on with isopropyl alcohol, just to remove any excess grit that may be lingering on the surface. When this is dry, we'll come back on with our new polish that we're testing. Okay, all nice and dry. So back on with the XM with oil. This isn't the final name of the polish, it's just an identifying name so Dean knows which one I'm using. Although it would be quite a cool name though, wouldn't it? Right, not too much on. Same as before. Buff it in when it's spinning, slowly increasing the speed. until we've got a nice shine. Okay, I'm going to have a quick tidy up, and then we'll come back and take a final look at what we've done. Well, there we go. The Thuya Burl bowl finished with a new experimental wax. And I must admit, the grain in this piece is absolutely incredible. Thuya is one of those woods that never really gets old to look at. It's just always absolutely incredible. There's so many faces and footprints and all sorts going on in this. You can see why it's such a highly valued wood. The wet sanding we did on this was a lot of fun. It's an incredibly messy process, and it is quite tricky as well, because you can never see exactly if you're done sanding until you put a final finish on. I do have a couple of lines left from the sanding which I've done my best to buff out, but they are there, but they don't necessarily detract from the piece whatsoever. If you are interested in purchasing this piece, I shall be putting it on the website, and the link is in the description below. Basically just go to mikeholton.co.uk and you'll see the shop there. All proceeds from the sales in the shop are all put back into the channel. As I've mentioned before, this is my second job, or my third job rather, and I don't take a profit from this. I put everything I make back into the channel. If you do want to help support the channel, then feel free to visit the Buy Me a Coffee. Again, link is at the end and in the description. And I'd like to say a massive thank you to Joyce, Michael, Anne and Kathy for doing exactly that this week. Thank you very much indeed, guys. I really do appreciate your support. Well, that's it for now. If you've enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual things. And if you could share it as well, that would be absolutely amazing. Don't forget, if you do leave a comment, you are going to be entered into the giveaway next time we do one. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to be, but if you do leave a comment, you will be entered. So apart from that, thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.